That should have been enough. One mistake. One line crossed. One moment I could point to and say, never again. I even felt proud of myself for stopping it so quickly. For ending it before it became something worse. Like I had proven to myself more than anyone that I was still in control. But control is a strange thing. You don't really notice when you start losing it. Not at first. At first, it feels like you're making decisions. Small ones. Manageable ones. Nothing that changes who you are. I went back to normal after that. Or at least, I tried to. I went home, made dinner, sat next to my husband like I always did. We talked about our days, laughed at the same things, fell into the same rhythm we had built over years. From the outside, nothing had changed. But inside, something had shifted. I noticed it in small ways. The way I replayed that moment in my head. Not because I wanted to relive it, but because I didn't fully understand it. Why it happened. Why I didn't stop it sooner. Why, for that 1 second, I didn't think about him at all. That part scared me the most. Not what I did, but what I didn't think about when I did it. I told myself it was just curiosity. Just a reaction to something new. Something different. And different had felt good. That was the part one didn't want to admit. Because it didn't mean I loved my husband any less. It just meant there was something missing that I hadn't noticed before. Or maybe I had noticed it and ignored it. Either way, once that thought appeared, I couldn't get rid of it. And that's when everything started becoming more complicated. Not all at once. Not dramatically. Just gradually. Like something slowly expanding beneath the surface. A few weeks later, I went out with friends. Nothing unusual. Just a bar, drinks, the same kind of night we'd had dozens of times before. I wasn't looking for anything. I didn't go there thinking about what had happened before. If anything, I was trying not to think about it. And then I met someone. Completely random. We started talking. And I recognized the feeling immediately. That same lightness. That same ease. That same lack of history. And I should have stepped back. I knew exactly where that path could lead. I had already seen it once. But instead, I stayed. Told myself I was just talking. That I could handle it this time. That I knew where the line was now. That I wouldn't cross it again. That I had learned. And for most of the night, I believed that. Until I didn't. Until I didn't. It wasn't dramatic. No big moment, no clear decision. Just a shift. A step that felt small while it was happening and obvious only after it was done. We were standing outside, near the door, the noise from inside fading into the background. It was late. People were leaving. It would have been the easiest moment in the world to say goodbye and walk away. And for a second, I almost did. I even turned slightly, like I was about to leave. Then he said something, nothing important, nothing memorable, and I stopped. That was it. That tiny pause. That hesitation. And everything that followed came from that one moment. I didn't move. I knew what was happening. Not in detail. Not step by step. But I knew enough. I had already lived through the first time. I knew how it starts. I knew how it feels right before you cross the line. And I stayed anyway. Just like before. It didn't go far. Not really. Not in the way people imagine when they hear a story like this. But far enough. Far enough that I felt that same drop in my chest again. That same realization. You did it again. I pulled away faster this time. Said I had to go. Didn't explain. Didn't look back. I got into a taxi and stared out the window the entire ride home. Not thinking. Not processing. Just sitting in it. Because this time, it was different. The first time felt like a mistake. This didn't. This felt like a pattern. And that scared me more than anything else. When I got home, the lights were off. My husband was already asleep. I stood in the doorway for a moment, just looking at him. The same person I had chosen. The same person who trusted me completely. And for the first time, I felt like I didn't deserve that. I went to the bathroom, washed my hands, my face, like I could remove something that wasn't actually visible. Then I got into bed, careful not to wake him. He moved slightly, instinctively, like he always does. Half asleep, reaching closer. Familiar. Automatic. And I froze. because I didn't feel like I belonged in that moment. Not the way I used to. The next morning, everything was normal. Too normal. Morning, he said, already making coffee. Morning. Same tone. Same rhythm. Same life. And I played my part perfectly. I smiled. Talked. Asked about his plans. Answered his questions. Nothing in my voice, my face, my behavior would have suggested anything was wrong. And that was the part that unsettled me the most. How easy it was. How natural it felt to just continue. Like I could separate things. Like I could leave what happened outside and walk back into my life without carrying it in with me. I told myself it was the last time. Again. Stronger this time. More certain. Because now I had proof. This wasn't random. This wasn't situational. This was something in me. And if I didn't stop it now, it would keep happening. So I made a decision. No more situations like that. No more conversations that feel different. No more staying longer than I should. No more testing where the line is. Just stop. And for a while, I did. I focused on my relationship. Put more effort in. Tried to reconnect in the ways that mattered. We spent more time together. Went out more. Talked more. And on the surface, it worked. Things felt closer again. More aligned. Like maybe I had caught it early enough. Maybe I had corrected it. Maybe I had pulled myself back before it went too far. But underneath that, something hadn't changed. Because it wasn't about opportunity. It wasn't about the environment. It wasn't even about other people. It was about how I felt. And that feeling didn't disappear. It just waited. Quiet. Unnoticed. Until the next time something or someone brought it back. And when it did, it came back stronger. It didn't come back all at once. There wasn't a moment where everything just snapped back into place and I thought, here we go again. It was slower than that. Quieter. More subtle. Which made it harder to notice and even harder to stop. At first, it was just thoughts. Small ones. Random. Triggered by nothing in particular. A memory of how easy it felt to talk to someone new. How light everything seemed when there was no history, no expectations, no weight behind every word. I tried to ignore it. I really did. I focused on what I had. On what actually mattered. My husband. Our life. Everything we had built together over 10 years. And it was real. That's what made this so confusing. Nothing about my relationship was broken in an obvious way. We didn't fight. We didn't resent each other. We didn't feel like strangers. If anything, we functioned perfectly. And somehow, that made the contrast worse. Because what I felt outside of it wasn't about fixing something. It was about escaping something I couldn't even fully define. Weeks passed. Then months. I stayed careful. Avoided situations. Avoided conversations. Avoided anything that even felt like it could lead me back to that place. And for a while, I thought I had it under control again. Until I realized something I hadn't considered before. Avoiding something doesn't mean you've dealt with it. It just means you've postponed it. The third time didn't happen in a bar. Or at work. Or anywhere obvious. It happened in the most ordinary way possible. Through someone I wasn't even supposed to notice. A mutual friend introduced us. Group setting. Casual. No pressure. No intention. We talked. Briefly. Nothing special. Or at least, that's what I told myself at the time. But later that night, I thought about it. Just for a second. Then longer. Then enough to recognize the pattern. That same feeling. That same curiosity. That same pull. And this time, I didn't act immediately. I didn't put myself in a situation. I didn't stay longer than I should. I just kept thinking about it. Which, somehow, was worse. Because it meant it wasn't just about the moment anymore. It was about what stayed after. A few days later, he messaged me. Simple. Casual. Something about the conversation we had. I could have ignored it. Easily. It wouldn't have been strange. We weren't close. There was no expectation to continue anything. And for a moment, I hovered over the screen. Knowing exactly what this could turn into. Because now I had enough experience to see the pattern clearly. I knew where this leads. I knew how it starts. I knew how it feels right before you lose control of it. And I answered anyway. Yeah, I remember. That was funny. Sent. Just like that. No hesitation. No second thought. And that's when something shifted again. Because this time, I didn't feel like I was being pulled into it. I felt like I was stepping into it. On purpose. The conversation stayed light. Safe. Nothing crossed the line. Nothing even came close. But it continued. Day after day. Message after message. And slowly, it became part of my routine. Something I expected. Something I looked for. Something I checked for before anything else. That's when I realized the real problem. It wasn't about physical boundaries. It wasn't about how far things went. It was about how early they started. Because by the time anything happens, something has already shifted long before that. And I could feel it happening again. That separation. That quiet split between what I had and what I was creating on the side. The worst part? It still felt manageable. Still felt like something I could control. Because nothing had actually happened yet. No lines crossed. No mistakes made. Just talking. That's what I told myself. Again. Until one night, I looked down at my phone. And realized I was smiling. For no reason. At a message I shouldn't have been waiting for. And for the first time, I didn't feel surprised by it. I felt used to it. Like this had already become part of me. And that's when I understood something I didn't want to admit. This wasn't something I was trying to stop anymore. This was something I was learning how to manage. And that realization was worse than anything I had done so far. By the time I realized what was happening with him, it was already familiar. Not in a comforting way. In a predictable way. I knew the pattern now. How it starts. How it builds. How it feels like nothing right until it isn't. And that's what made this different from the first two times. I wasn't surprised anymore. I wasn't confused. I understood exactly what I was doing. And I still didn't stop. We kept talking. Every day. Nothing inappropriate. Nothing obvious. If anyone saw the messages, they wouldn't think twice. But it wasn't about what we said. It was about how it felt. That same ease. That same attention. That same version of myself that only seemed to exist in these conversations. A version that felt lighter. Less defined. And that version of me started showing up more often. Not just with him. With others too. That's when it stopped being about one person. And started becoming something else entirely. The first time after him was almost accidental. A friend of a friend. We met at a small gathering. Nothing planned. Nothing intentional. We talked for a while. And I recognized it immediately. That same opening. That same moment where I could either step back or stay. I stayed. Not for long. Not enough for it to become something real. But enough. Enough to feel that shift again. Enough to leave with that same quiet weight in my chest. After that, it got easier. Not the guilt. That never got easier. But the process. The pattern. Recognizing it. Entering it. Ending it. Like I had created some kind of system for it. Short. Contained. Temporary. That's how I justified it. I never let anything go too far. Never let it turn into something physical beyond a certain point. Never let it become emotional. At least, that's what I told myself. Because if it stayed limited, if it stayed controlled, then maybe it didn't count the same way. Maybe it wasn't as bad. That's how I made sense of it. One guy at a bar. Another through someone I knew from work. Someone I met while traveling with friends. Different names. Different faces. Same pattern. It would start the same way every time. Conversation. Connection. That moment where everything feels new. And then, that line. The one I always told myself I wouldn't cross. And somehow, I always got close enough to it. Close enough to feel something. Then I would stop. Pull back. Disappear. End it before it became something I couldn't explain away. 8 times. That's what it added up to. 8 different people. None of them stayed. None of them meant anything long-term. And yet, each one left something behind. Not with them. With me. That's what I started noticing after a while. It wasn't just about what I was doing. It was about what it was doing to me. How I felt afterward. Not just guilt. Something deeper. Like I was splitting myself into parts. The version of me that came home. And the version of me that existed outside of that. And every time, those two versions felt harder to connect again. But I kept going. Because in between all of that, my real life was still there. My husband was still there. Unchanged. Consistent. Trusting me the same way he always had. Loving me the same way he always had. And that made everything more confusing. Because I wasn't trying to replace him. I wasn't trying to leave. I didn't want another relationship. I wanted this one to work. I just couldn't stop stepping outside of it. And now, it's happening again. But this time, it feels different. Not because of him, but because of me. Because I don't feel like I'm reacting anymore. I feel like I'm moving toward it. There's someone I've been talking to. We met through a mutual friend. It started the same way. Casual. Easy. Familiar. Too familiar. And now, my husband is out of town. I'm alone. And I have a message sitting on my phone. An invitation. Simple. Clear. No pressure. No expectation. And I know exactly what it means. I know exactly where it leads. Because I've walked this path before. More times than I want to admit. I'm sitting here, looking at the screen, trying to convince myself not to go. Trying to remember how this always ends. The guilt. The distance. The feeling of losing something I can't get back. And yet, part of me is already getting ready. That's the part one don't understand. That's the part one can't control. And that's why this time feels different. Because for the first time, I'm not sure I'm going to stop myself. I kept staring at the message. It wasn't long. It wasn't complicated. Just a time. A place. If you want to come by. No pressure. No assumption. And somehow, that made it harder. Because there was nothing to push against. No excuse to say this got out of hand. No way to pretend it wasn't my decision. If I went, it would be because I chose to. I put my phone down. Walked to the kitchen. Poured water I didn't drink. Came back. Picked the phone up again. Same message. Same feeling. That pull. I tried to slow it down. To think it through the way I should. What happens after? How I'll feel. The look on my husband's face if he ever found out. The way I'll come back home and act like nothing happened. I've done that before. Too many times. And I know exactly how it ends. So why does it still feel like I'm about to do it anyway? I sat on the couch and opened our messages. My husband's. Scrolled up. Normal conversations. Random things. Memes. Plans. Don't forget to eat. Call me when you get home. Small things. Consistent things. Real things. I should have felt grounded by that. Pulled back into what matters. But instead, it felt distant. Like I was looking at something I used to be fully inside of. And now wasn't. My phone buzzed again. Him. Only if you want to. I closed my eyes. Because that's the problem. I did want to. Not fully. Not confidently. But enough. Enough to keep sitting here. Enough to not just ignore it. Enough to still be considering it. I stood up. Started walking around the apartment. Like movement would somehow change something. It didn't. The decision was already forming. Not clearly. Not consciously. But I could feel it. That same pattern. That same path. The one I always tell myself I won't follow again. And yet, I always do. I stopped in front of the mirror. Looked at myself for a second longer than usual. Trying to see something. A reason. An answer. Something that explains why I keep doing this. But all I saw was someone who doesn't look like the person I thought I was. And that realization didn't stop me. It just made everything quieter. More certain. I went back to the couch. Picked up my phone. Opened the message. My fingers hovered for a second. Then, okay, sent. Just like that. No long explanation. No hesitation. One word. And everything shifted. He replied almost instantly. I'll send you the address. Of course he did. Because from his perspective, this was simple. Normal. Expected. He didn't know anything about my life. About my husband. About the last 3 years. About the fact that this wasn't new for me. That this wasn't even unusual anymore. I put my phone down. And for a second, I expected to feel something stronger. Guilt, panic, regret. But it didn't come immediately. Instead, there was just silence. A strange kind of calm. Like once the decision is made, the tension disappears. And that scared me more than anything else. Because it meant this wasn't hard for me anymore. Not the way it should be. I got up slowly, walked toward the bedroom, opened the closet, just stood there, not moving, not thinking, just existing inside the decision I had already made. Because the truth is, this wasn't about him, or the others, or even the situation. It was about something in me that I hadn't figured out how to stop. Something that keeps pulling me back into the same cycle. No matter how many times I tell myself I'm done. My phone buzzed again. The address. Clear. Close. Easy. I looked at it for a long second. Then locked my phone, set it down, and sat back on the edge of the bed. Because now, there was only one question left. Not whether I wanted to go. Not whether I knew it was wrong. But something simpler. More honest. Am I actually going to stop myself this time? Or am I just going to do what I always do? And for the first time, I didn't have an answer I trusted. I stayed on the edge of the bed longer than I expected. Phone next to me. Address still in my head. Everything about it felt decided. Like the only thing left was to follow through. I stood up, walked back into the living room, picked up my keys, then stopped. Just stopped. No big realization. No sudden wave of guilt. Nothing dramatic. Just a pause. A small break in the pattern. And for some reason, this time I listened to it. I put the keys back down, sat on the couch, stared at nothing. Minutes passed, then more, until the moment felt like it had already moved on without me. I picked up my phone, opened the conversation. I can't make it. Sent. 3 dots appeared. Then, all good. That was it. No questions. No pressure. No second attempt. And somehow, that made it easier to sit with. I leaned back into the couch, exhaling slowly. For the first time in a long time, I had stopped myself. Actually stopped. Not halfway. Not after something already happened. Before. And I expected to feel relief. Pride, maybe. Like I had broken something. Changed something. But instead, there was just quiet. Not satisfying. Not rewarding. Just neutral. And that confused me. Because I thought stopping would feel like winning. But it didn't. It just felt like nothing happened. Like I had avoided something instead of fixing it. That night, I didn't go anywhere. Didn't talk to anyone. Didn't open any other messages. I just stayed in. Tried to sit with it. Tried to understand why this felt so incomplete. Because if I could stop once, why couldn't I stop before? And more importantly, why did it still feel like the cycle wasn't actually broken? The next morning, my husband called. Hey, he said, his voice slightly tired. Hey, how's everything there? Fine. It came out automatically. But this time, it wasn't a lie. Nothing had happened. Nothing new, at least. Miss you, he added. A simple sentence. One he said hundreds of times. And for some reason, it landed differently this time. I miss you too, I replied. And that was true. Completely. We talked for a few minutes. About normal things. Work. Plans. When he'd be back. Nothing unusual. Nothing that hinted at anything beneath it. But when the call ended, I didn't feel grounded. I felt divided. Because both things were true at the same time. I missed him. And I almost went to someone else. That contradiction sat with me longer than anything else. Later that day, I got another message. Not from him. Someone else. Different name. Different conversation. Same tone. Are you free this week? I stared at it. Longer than I should have. Because now, I knew something I hadn't fully accepted before. It wasn't about opportunity. It wasn't about a specific person. It wasn't even about the situation last night. Because I had stopped. I had proven I can stop. But the urge, the pattern, the part of me that moves toward it, was still there. Completely intact. And now it was just waiting for the next opening. I locked my phone. Set it down. But I didn't feel in control. Not really. Because stopping once didn't change anything underneath. It just delayed it. And that's when something clicked. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But enough to feel it. I don't have a temptation problem. I have a pattern. And patterns don't disappear because you interrupt them once. They repeat. Until something actually changes. That realization stayed with me the rest of the day. And for the first time, I stopped thinking about the people, the situations, the moments, and started thinking about something else. Why do I keep choosing this? Not accidentally, not impulsively, but repeatedly. And why does stopping feel so empty, while continuing feels so easy? Because until I answer that, it doesn't matter how many times I say no. The next yes is already waiting. Once that thought settled in, everything started to look different. Not easier, just clearer. Because for the first time, I stopped focusing on the who. Not the guy from work. Not the one at the bar. Not the one who sent me the address last night. Not even the one texting me now. They were different people. Different situations. Different circumstances. But the outcome was always the same. Which meant they weren't the reason. I was. That's a hard thing to admit. Not in a dramatic way. Just, honestly. Because it removes every excuse. It means I can't blame timing. Or curiosity. Or loneliness. Or even what happened before my wedding. All of that may have started something. But it didn't keep it going. I did. That realization stayed with me the entire day. I didn't open the new message again. Didn't respond. Didn't even check if there was another one. I just left it. And for the first time, that felt intentional. Not avoidance. A decision. But it didn't feel strong. It felt fragile. Like something that could flip back at any moment. That evening, I called my husband. I don't usually do that first. He does. But this time, I needed to hear his voice. Hey, he said, a little surprised. Hey, are you busy? Not really. Everything okay? Yeah, I said quickly. I just wanted to talk. There was a small pause on his end. Then, okay. We talked longer than usual. About nothing important. Just normal things. But I noticed something. I was paying attention differently. Listening more closely. Not because I had to. Because I wanted to. Because I was trying to reconnect to something I felt slipping. At one point, he laughed at something I said. That familiar, effortless laugh. The one I've heard for years. And for a second, everything felt aligned again. Simple. Real. Exactly the way it used to. And that scared me. Because if that's still there, then why am I still doing everything else? After the call ended, I sat there in silence. Phone still in my hand. Thinking about that question. And the answer wasn't comfortable. Because it meant this isn't about what I have. It's about something I'm seeking. Something I get from those moments that I don't feel the same way here. Not better. Just different. And instead of understanding it, I've been chasing it. Over and over again. With different people. In the same pattern. I picked up my phone again. Opened the unread message. Are you free this week? Still there. Simple. Open. And I realized something. This is always how it starts. Not with a decision. With an option. Something that feels small. Something I can ignore. Something I should ignore. But usually don't. I stared at it for a long time. Longer than I needed to. Because I knew. This wasn't about replying. It was about what I've been doing every time I don't. Every time I engage. Every time I allow it to move forward. I typed a reply. Stopped. Deleted it. Then locked my phone. Put it face down on the table. And walked away. Not dramatically. Not as some big statement. Just quietly. Because this time, I wasn't trying to prove I could stop. I was trying to understand if I actually wanted to. And that's a harder question. Because if I don't want to stop, then everything else I've been telling myself is just noise. I sat back down a few minutes later. Picked up my phone again. And opened the message. Because the truth is, understanding something doesn't mean you've changed it. Not yet. And I could feel it. That pull again. Less urgent. But still there. Still familiar. Still waiting. And for the first time, I didn't try to fight it immediately. I just sat with it, watching it, trying to see it for what it actually is. Not excitement, not connection, not something meaningful, just a pattern repeating itself. And if I follow it again, I already know how it ends. That's the part one can't ignore anymore. Not after everything. Not after all of them. Not after what it's already done to me. So now the question is different. Not can I stop? I already proved I can. But will I keep choosing to? Because that's the only thing that actually matters. For a few days, I did everything right. At least, that's how it looked. I didn't reply to the message. I didn't go out. I didn't put myself in situations where anything could happen. On paper, I was doing exactly what I was supposed to do. Stopping. Choosing my marriage. Breaking the pattern. But underneath that, nothing actually felt different. That's what I didn't expect. I thought if I removed the behavior, everything else would settle. The guilt would fade. The urge would disappear. The part of me that keeps leaning toward those situations would just quiet down. It didn't. It stayed. Just waiting. Quieter, maybe. Less active. But still there. And that's when I realized something I hadn't considered before. I've been trying to fix this from the outside. Control the actions. Avoid the situations. Limit the opportunities. But I never actually dealt with what's underneath it. Because every time I stop, I'm not resolving anything. I'm just pressing pause. And eventually, it plays again. That thought stuck with me all day. And for the first time, I didn't push it away. I let it sit. Because if I don't understand why I keep doing this, then stopping won't last. That evening, I opened my phone again. Not to reply, just to look. The message was still there, unanswered. And for the first time, it didn't feel tempting. It felt familiar, predictable, like something I've already lived through too many times. I hovered over it. Then finally, I deleted it. No response. No explanation. Just gone. And that felt different. Not like avoiding. Like closing something. Small. But real. I set my phone down and leaned back. Exhaling slowly. Because that was the first time I didn't just resist the pattern. I stepped out of it. Completely. At least in that moment. But that still didn't answer the bigger question. Why does this keep happening? I thought about the beginning. Before all of this. Before the first time. Before anything had shifted. Back when everything felt clear. And I kept coming back to the same point. That moment before our wedding. When something broke. Not visibly. Not loudly. But internally. The way I saw him changed. The way I felt changed. And I never actually dealt with it. I just moved forward. Ignored it. Hoped it would fix itself. But it didn't. It just transformed into something else. And I think that's where all of this started. Not the cheating, not the pattern, but the disconnect. Because ever since then, part of me hasn't been fully present in my own relationship. Not completely. Not consistently. And instead of facing that, I've been escaping it. Over and over again. Through moments that feel new. Different. Easy. But temporary. Always temporary. That realization didn't fix anything. But it changed how I saw it. Because now, it's not about the other people. It's not even about stopping myself. It's about something I've been avoiding for years. Something I never said out loud. Something I never fully admitted, even to myself. And if I don't face that, none of this actually ends. My phone buzzed suddenly. I picked it up. Different name. Again. A new message. Hey, long time. Wanna catch up? I stared at it. For a long time. Because this is exactly how it always comes back. Not dramatically. Not urgently. Just casually. Like it's nothing. Like it's easy. Like it doesn't lead anywhere. And for the first time, I didn't feel pulled. I felt aware. Aware of what this is. Where it goes. What it becomes. And what it costs me every time. I typed a reply. Stopped. Deleted it. Then typed something else. This time slower. More deliberate. No, I don't think that's a good idea. I read it twice. Then sent it. The message delivered instantly. No hesitation. No second thoughts. And I just sat there, waiting to feel something. Relief. Pride. Anything. But instead, there was just quiet again. The same quiet as before. And I finally understood why. Because this isn't about saying no once. It's about what I do next. What I choose tomorrow. And the day after that. Because the pattern doesn't break in a single moment. It breaks in repetition. In consistency. In choices that don't feel dramatic. But add up over time. And for the first time, I wasn't thinking about stopping for one night. I was thinking about whether I can actually change this long term. Which means, I need to stop running from the real problem. Because this, isn't it? Saying no didn't fix anything. It just made space. And in that space, without the noise, without the distraction, I had nothing left to hide behind. No messages. No anticipation. No temporary escape. Just me. And the part one had been avoiding. I sat in that silence longer than I ever had before. Not scrolling. Not texting. Not reaching for something to fill it. Just thinking. And the more I did, the clearer something became. I kept telling myself this started because of what he did. Because of the lie. Because of how it changed the way I saw him. And maybe that's true. Maybe that's where the first crack appeared. But it's not why it kept going. Because I had chances to stop. Real chances. Clear ones. And I didn't take them. That's on me. Not him. Not our relationship. Me. That realization wasn't dramatic. It didn't hit like some big emotional moment. It just settled. Quietly. Like something that had been obvious for a long time, but I finally stopped looking away from. I've been waiting for a reason that justifies this. Something I could point to and say, this is why I did it. Something that makes it make sense. But there isn't one. There's no clean explanation. No single cause. Just a series of choices I kept making because I didn't want to deal with something deeper. And I think I finally understand what that is. It's not that I don't love my husband. I do. That part never changed. But love isn't the same as being fully present. And I haven't been. Not completely. Not for a long time. There's a part of me that checked out back then. When everything shifted. When I stopped seeing him the same way. And instead of fixing that, I found ways to avoid feeling it. Through moments that felt new. Temporary. Easy. But never real. Because none of those connections were real. Not in the way that matters. They didn't require anything from me. No history. No responsibility. No effort to maintain something over time. Just moments. And I kept choosing them because they were easier than facing what was missing in my actual life. That's the truth. And it's not the one I expected. Because it means this isn't about him. It's about me not dealing with something I should have dealt with years ago. That night, I didn't reach for my phone. I didn't look for distraction. I just sat with that. Let it settle. Because if I run from it again, nothing changes. The next morning, my husband called. Hey, he said. Hey, how are you? I paused. For a second longer than usual. Because for the first time, I didn't want to give the automatic answer. I'm okay, I said. It wasn't perfect. But it wasn't a lie either. There was a small silence on his end. Then, you sound different. I exhaled slowly. I think I've just been thinking a lot. About what? Another pause. This one heavier. Because this is where it matters. Where I either stay where I've been. Or move toward something real. About us, I said. Quiet. Honest. Simple. He didn't answer right away. And for a moment, I felt that familiar urge to soften it. To take it back. To make it less serious than it actually is. But I didn't. I just let it sit. Okay, he said finally. Not dismissive. Not defensive. Just open. And that was enough. For now. After the call ended, I put my phone down and leaned back. Because this feels different. Not easier. Not resolved. But real. For the first time in a long time. And I think that's where this actually starts. Not with stopping. Not with control. But with facing what I've been avoiding. Because if I don't do that, nothing else matters. Not the promises. Not the decisions. Not even the guilt. It all just repeats. And I'm tired of repeating it. The hardest part wasn't saying no. It wasn't ignoring messages or deleting conversations or staying home when I knew exactly where I could go. I had already proven I could do that. The hardest part was what came after. The part where nothing distracts you from yourself. Where you're left with the quiet, and everything you've been avoiding starts to surface. Because once I stopped running, I realized something uncomfortable. I didn't just create distance between me and my husband. I created distance between me and myself. All those moments I kept chasing, the new, the easy, the light, they weren't just escapes from my relationship. They were escapes from accountability. From sitting in discomfort. From admitting that something changed back then, and I never addressed it. I just adapted around it. Built a version of my life that looked stable on the outside, while quietly splitting myself in two on the inside. And now that I've stopped, I have to face that version of me fully. Not the one who says, I didn't mean to, but the one who did it anyway. Repeatedly. Knowingly. And that's not easy to accept. That evening, I called my husband again. Not because I had something prepared. Not because I knew exactly what to say. But because avoiding this any longer would just put me back where I was. Hey, he said. Hey, are you busy? No. What's up? I took a breath. Not deep. Not dramatic. Just enough. I think we need to talk about something real. There was a pause. Longer than usual. But he didn't interrupt. Didn't fill the silence. Okay, he said. And again. That word felt different now. Not distant. Not neutral. Present. I don't think I've been fully here for a while, I said. Carefully. Honestly. Not everything. But not nothing either. Another pause. I've felt that, he replied. No anger. No shock. Just acknowledgement. And that hit harder than anything else. Because it meant this wasn't invisible. It never was. We just never said it out loud. I didn't deal with something when it happened, I continued. And I think I've been avoiding it instead of fixing it. What do you mean? He asked. His tone stayed steady. Open. And that made it easier to stay there. To be honest. I don't even think I fully understood it until now, I said. And I don't want to keep pretending everything is fine when it's not exactly how it used to be. Silence. Then. So what are you saying? Clear. Direct. And fair. I leaned back slightly, holding the phone a little tighter. I'm saying I want to fix it, I answered. And I know that doesn't happen by just acting like nothing's wrong. Another pause. Then. Okay. That word again. But now. It felt like a starting point. Not an ending. We didn't solve everything in that conversation. Not even close. We didn't unpack years of distance or confusion or everything I've done. But something changed. Because for the first time, I wasn't avoiding the real issue. I wasn't distracting myself from it. I was facing it. Even if only partially. Even if only in the beginning stages. And that matters more than anything I've done before. After the call ended, I sat there for a long time. Not thinking about messages. Not thinking about anyone else. Just present. In my own life. In my own choices. In what comes next. Because this isn't fixed. Not yet. Stopping didn't fix it. Understanding didn't fix it. Even this conversation didn't fix it. But it did something more important. It broke the pattern. Not the external one. The internal one. The one where I avoid, distract, and repeat. And now, what happens next is on me. Not in a vague way. Not in a I'll try way. In a clear, consistent, daily way. Because this doesn't change in one decision. It changes in many. Over time. Quietly. The same way it broke. And for the first time in a long time, I'm not thinking about what I might lose. I'm thinking about what I can rebuild. Not perfectly. Not instantly. But honestly. And that's something I haven't done in a while. Maybe longer than I want to admit. But at least now. I finally stopped pretending I didn't have a choice.